Hey Simon, it's Nick. So as you can see, I'm at my high performance catamaran sailing club. I came back to Montreal for the summer. The boat's on the Hard in Mexico, in Marina San Carlos, and I thought I'd do a quick video to answer your question specifically about my Saildrive, my S-130B Saildrive on my Volvo Drive. So I'm just going to go back and forth with the email here to see the questions that your client was asking. So has there been any water incursion or seal failure? If so, when and how did you repair it? So uh, as you know, I have quite an history with this boat. I've had it for 8 years. I bought it brand new, and the boat sit at about 50,000 offshore miles at this time. And the engine and transmission are at about 26 or 2,700 hours. I'm not exactly sure how much, maybe 28. Uh, I've ran that engine and that transmission quite a fair bit. And I must say, overall, the Volvo engine with the combo of the S130B Saildrive has performed really well for me. It's been a great engine, it's been a great transmission. Now, to specifically answer the question whether there's been any seal breakage, the answer is yes. It's happened twice in 8 years. And the first one was a very, very minute fail. I say minute because it just was the result. I think it had occurred at about 1600 hours, and they were on the original seals of the transmission. So at 1600 hours later, that's like back and forth on the East Coast many times, across the Panama Canal, to the Galapagos Island, and then to San Diego, back down the Baja Coast, all of that. And then I could see a little, it was a tiny bit of milkiness to the oil, the transmission oil, because I inspected regularly, like pretty much every day I run the transmission. I'll take the dipstick out and I'll look at the quality of my oil, the level of the oil, and all that kind of stuff. And I could notice some milkiness to it at some point after, like I said, at about 1600 hours around there. So the remedy to that is fairly simple. Boats need to be hauled out regularly for all kinds of maintenance issue, whether it's anti-fouling paint or anything like that. And I basically concluded from that experience that those seals were pretty much expendable, and I resorted to every time I haul out the boat, uh, unless I have a good reason not to do it, pretty much every time I haul out the boat, I think about changing these seals. They're not a very expensive seal, and the way the transmission is built, and I'll forward at the end of the video, I'll put the exploded view of the seal of the whole bottom end of the transmission. It's like two Allen key. You pull that out. There's two O-rings. You take the O-rings out. You take the shaft out of there. The seals are a bit tough to pull out of there, but I've seen a guy who helped me. Like he just heats up the aluminum part a little bit, take the bearing race out of there, and then he changes the seal. So I've done that job myself the first time, and I'm fairly mechanically inclined. I'm by no means an expert master mechanic, but it's not a job that is tough to complete by any stretch of the imagination. It's very simple. You just drain the oil, you pull the prop first, and then you pull the two Allen key bolts, and you just change the seals. It's really straightforward, and it gives you an opportunity to inspect the interior housing of the lower end of the transmission. Gives you an opportunity to inspect your gear, your bearing races, and on the first when I opened that up, there was no issues there at all. Those gears are in pristine condition, very well, not corroded. You can see any, even if you take, I took like an hourglass to it, not an hourglass, like a magnifying glass to it, and I can't see any stripes or any kind of wear and tear on those races or on the bearings. So I was pretty happy with that. And like for the price of these seals, I can't remember how much they cost. I think they're about $50 each. You need two, so it's $100 job in terms of parts. And I do that kind of work myself on the boat, and it's not a big deal. The second time it happened is actually this year, and this time was a bit more worrying at first because I had to pull out the boat and I inspected everything, and it's still in great condition. It's still perfect. But what happened this time is I had been on year and a half. So I live on the boat full time. So the boat, although it's run a lot, like because I'm on it a lot, you know, if anything breaks, this is my life. It's my house. Anything breaks, it gets sorted out like right away. It just doesn't sit there and compound issues and all that kind of stuff. You know, if something is remotely not good, I'll fix it. This time around, I was in Zihuatanejo in Mexico, and there's a haul out facility in Ixtapa just next by. But unfortunately, there was a super yacht that grounded itself in the channel, so I was forced to take the boat up to Puerto Vallarta on a sick transmission, and this time the oil was very milky. So what I did to do that is I pulled out all of the water, seawater, and oil out of the transmission, and I put in some new transmission, knowing that I was going to lose that oil and have some water infiltration some more. But I just wanted to keep that gear in the most pristine oil I could possibly do. So I did that, and then I ran the motor and the transmission for maybe, I would say, an hour, maybe an hour and a half, to just to get out of Ziwa Bay, shut down the motor, and then I pulled all of that oil and that seawater that was infiltrated in there again, and I poured some. I had bought like bulks of 1540, which is the spec of oil that Volvo recommends to put in that gear, and I put it in. And then I sailed my way. I literally did not use the motor on this whole run to Puerto Vallarta. So it's an upwind run, but I have a nice code zero. I have a nice folding prop on the boat. So any kind of 7 or 8 knots of wind, I can generate about 10 knots of apparent wind, and I'm able to go upwind. It's a deep drafted boat, so I'm able to go upwind pretty good in very light condition, which is, I love doing that. Like I love keeping my boat in very light sea condition, yet because I'm geared for low end light wind, I'm able to make way in any kind of condition. So I made Puerto Vallarta, and then I hauled out there, actually just north of there, a place called San Blas. So I sailed up to San Blas, and I hauled out there. Of course, I had to run the motor again, like coming into the channel of the marina. But that engine has not been run. So, and I pulled the oil out like I think before I did that, because it was like 3 or 4 days. So right before I got to the channel and I was going to run the transmission, I pulled the oil out again, poured some new oil in, and then I made it in the channel. And then the boat got hauled out. I pulled out the prop, and what happened is it was a nasty piece of luck, but there was a seashell that actually grew on a spacer part that's right on the shaft that was sitting right on that seal. I mean, that's what happened, and that's what tore my seal apart, and that's why all of this happened. Point is, I did the best I could to mitigate the potential damage that this was going to cause to the transmission, and I hauled out the boat again, drained the oil. I already had the new seals in hand, changed the new seals in, put the boat back in the water, so put some oil back in, put the boat back in the water, run the transmission, and that thing is watertight again. And so that those are the two occurrences I've had of if you want problems with that transmission, all of that in 8 years of fairly intense cruising, compared to you know I I I've come to accept that as a natural part of boating, and I think that it's a overall I'm very satisfied with the Volvo drivetrain. It's really good. It worked really well. Like I say, I must be at 28 or close to 2,800 hours on it now, and it's been performing flawlessly for me. As I, of course, when I hauled out, I inspected my gear because you have to undo all the transmission. I inspected all the gear. I made sure that everything was nice and okay with it. And I couldn't be happier with the state of those gears. It doesn't look like there's no corrosion whatsoever. The tolerances, like I checked the tolerances, like just trying to see what kind of gap I got between the teats. It's very tight still. Like I've done the oil change the Volvo calls for 200 hours. So every 200 hours you have to have an oil extractor, pull the oil out, pour some new in. So I did that regularly, and of course every time I hauled out the boat. Overall, doing it that way, it's a great kit. There's really no issues with it, and I feel confident that a new owner would have the same experience. Some more notes: a brand new Saildrive, like brand new, fully new Saildrive, is $3,500 US, I think. So that's the price for a new replacement for that unit, and a used one, if you're gonna go for well, a refurbished, sorry, not a used one, a refurbished. I saw a refurbished unit at the Volvo dealer in San Diego, and that goes for $2,000 US. So all in all, I mean, the sale drive is not a big part of the risk. So that's my sort of experience with that sale drive. Regular oil change, mostly trouble-free operation, over 8 years and 2,800 hours of operation. This failure this year I've had was the first time that I ever saw that. Like literally, that seashell grew right on the spacer and came and ruined the seal. So that was bad luck. You can't fault the machine or the seal for that. And other than that, like I say, it's pretty great. So right now, those seals are brand new on the boat. They've been replaced in April. Would I purchase another boat with a sail drive? The answer is absolutely yes. Uh, and I'm a fairly demanding boat owner. I'm a guy that goes offshore. I use a Bavaria to go blue water cruising, which by itself is not necessarily ideal, I'll admit, but I make it work. But the sail drive would never be an issue or consideration that would preclude me from considering a boat for my purpose. I find it runs really well. The other thing I'm discovering is that you know, like 2 failures in 8 years of intense seagoing using is something that I'm willing to accept. And the other thing is I can do the work myself on this thing because it's a simple mechanic thing, and it's easy to repair, like really easy to repair. It's not a tough job. So I would not discard a boat that has a sail drive for any reason at all. So that's basically the lowdown I had on the sail drive thing.